What up, RotoBallers? John Mathisen checking in with you here. And with the first set of buys coming up this weekend, we want to look ahead over the next 3 weeks to find some roster replacements to help you bridge the gap until your regular starters come off their buys. So the waiver wire is looking a little bleak at the moment. So ideally, you already have some of these players rostered. But if not, we're going to try to find some guys that are rostered in 50% or less of Yahoo leagues to give you a fighting chance. We'll go week by week to try to find some relevant replacements for any big name players that you have on buy. Full disclosure, I'm recording this video on Tuesday, October 3rd. So by now, some of these players may be rostered and unavailable in your leagues. Okay, looking ahead, we have 4 teams on bye for week 5. That's the Seattle Seahawks, the Cleveland Browns, the Los Angeles Chargers, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Week 6 is only 2 teams, not too bad, Green Bay Packers and Pittsburgh Steelers. Week 7, we have 6 teams on bye. That's Carolina Panthers, Cincinnati Bengals, Dallas Cowboys, New York Jets, Tennessee Titans, and Houston Texans. So we'll start with the quarterback. So if you're looking to replace maybe a Justin Herbert, Deshaun Watson in week 5, or perhaps Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, or CJ Stroud in week 7, we'll start things off with Jared Goff, who I love in week 5. He's playing at home against the Carolina Panthers. It is dome sweet dome for Jared Goff. So since 2021, when Jared Goff first joined the Lions, he's averaging 67% completion percentage, 260 yards, 2.10 touchdowns, and 0.5 interceptions per game at home at Ford Field. That's over a 20-game sample. On the road, he's been significantly worse with a 64% completion percentage, 235 yards, 0.88 touchdowns, and 0.6 interceptions. That's over a 16-game sample size. He gets the Panthers at home in week 5, and they've actually only allowed the 9th fewest points to the quarterback position. But look who they face. Desmond Ridder, Derek Carr, Taysom Hill, and Geno Smith. The only top quarterback they've really faced is Kirk Cousins, who just had a weird random game. He threw a 99-yard pick 6. Not exactly a murderer's row. I think Goff could eat in week 5. Jumping ahead to week 7, I like Geno Smith at home against the Arizona Cardinals. Now, he twisted his knee on Monday Night Football against the Giants. Apparently, it's not that serious of an injury, and the Seahawks have their bye in week 5, so he has plenty of time to heal up. Geno's thrown for over 300 yards in 2 of 4 games this season. They go to the Bengals in week 6, which that doesn't seem like a very formidable matchup at this point. And then they get the Cardinals at home in week 7. I do like both of those matchups, but I like him more in week 7. Then the last quarterback we can talk about for week 7 is actually Baker Mayfield. He gets the Falcons at home in week 7. And Mayfield's actually been a serviceable fantasy quarterback this year. If you take out week 3 against Philly, which is a rough matchup for everybody, Mayfield's actually averaging 16 points per game, which is like not bad if we're talking bye-week fill-ins. You could do a lot worse than Mayfield. The Falcons allowed 20 points to Jordan Love and almost 20 points to Jared Goff so far. So I think Mayfield could score around that too if you need him in week 7. Now I know Austin Eckler hasn't played since week 1. So if he's on your roster, you've already been using a backup option anyway. But if you have Kenneth Walker, Rashad White, or Jerome Ford, you're going to need help in week 5. Jumping ahead to week 6, Aaron Jones and Najee Harris are on bye. Jumping ahead to week 7, you get Joe Mixon, Tony Pollard, Damian Pierce, and Derrick Henry all on bye. So we're definitely going to need some help over these next 3 weeks. Now, Jaylen Warren is a guy I like. He hasn't really lived up to the preseason mini hype that he got. So he's only rostered in 55% of Yahoo leagues. You could probably get this guy on waivers right now. He can be a good bye week fill-in, especially in PPR leagues. Through 4 weeks, he has 18 catches for 127 yards and 25 carries for 84 yards. That's not a great clip. But when the buys come around, you don't really have a choice. You can't really be picky. And he's locked into 10 to 15 touches a game. That's hard to find on the waiver wire. Maybe you'll get lucky and he'll hit pay dirt this week against Baltimore. They have a bye in week 6. Then week 7, he gets the Rams. He has a safe floor. He won't kill you. And if he scores a touchdown, then hey, that's great. In week 6 and 7, I love Khalil Herbert. Now, he's rostered in 77% of Yahoo leagues at the time of this recording, so he's definitely going to be harder to find. He's coming off his best game of the season by far. Granted, he was playing the Broncos, who probably have the worst defense in the NFL right now. He had his first 100-yard performance, 18 carries for 103 yards, and he caught 4 balls for 19 yards and a touchdown. So he just had a great overall game. He outsnapped backfield mate Roschon Johnson, who everybody says is coming for his job. And that still may be true, but Herbert has not done enough to lose this job yet. The Bears were actually in a competitive game, and Herbert saw 78% of the backfield snaps compared to Roschon Johnson's 22%. The Bears get the Vikings in week 6 and the Raiders in week 7. Those could be competitive games for the Bears, and I think Herbert could be a great bye week fill-in if he's available in your league. So at this point, Kyren Williams of the Rams is probably rostered in your league. If he's not, go pick him up right now. I'm actually interested though in Ronnie Rivers, who I think claimed the backup job just this last week. Royce Freeman and Zach Evans are on this roster, but Rivers appears to be the handcuff to Kyren Williams. In the Rams' week 4 win over the Colts, he logged a 27% snap share. I think we could be trending towards more of a committee between Kyren and Ronnie Rivers, and the only reason why I say that is because Kyren saw a career high in touches against the Colts in week 4, and he banged his hip up, so he's actually kind of hurt right now. So Rivers had 9 carries for 47 yards and 2 catches on 2 targets for 10 yards against the Colts. That's not bad. It's obviously not great. You would need a touchdown from him. In fact, you need a touchdown from any of these guys for them to give you any sort of value. And I don't like the Rams matchup in week 5 against Philly, but they get the Cardinals in week 6, who give the 3rd most points to the running back position, and then they get the Steelers in week 7, who give the 6th most points to the running back position. So Rivers maybe more right now is kind of a handcuff, but just remember the name. If Kyren were to ever miss time, Rivers is a guy to go pick up. The last running back I want to talk about is Latavius Murray. He's a known quantity at this point. He's definitely a touchdown or bust type of roster fill-in, but he's outperformed Damian Harris, who we all thought at the beginning of the season was going to be the goal line back for the Bills. James Cook dominates the backfield touches for the Bills. That's no secret. The Bills get the Jags, the Giants, and the Patriots over the next 3 weeks. None of those matchups are that scary on paper. That could all do a positive game script for the Bills. And if that's the case, you could expect, I'd say, anywhere from 6 to 10 touches a week for Murray. And if he gets a touchdown, then hey, we're in business. All right, moving on to wide receiver. Quite a few names on bye this week, week 5. We have DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, they're unavailable. Amari Cooper's not going to be playing. The same goes for Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and Keenan Allen. So you're definitely going to need a fill-in week 5. Week 6, not as much talent will be off the board, but week 7, you're not going to have Jamar Chase, Nico Collins, or CeeDee Lamb. So weeks 5 and 7, you're definitely going to need help at the wide receiver position. The obvious add right now is Tyler Boyd. He's currently rostered in 37% of Yahoo leagues. And the reason why he's a must-add is because T. Higgins banged up his ribs in week 4. He's going to miss at least a few weeks. So theoretically, Boyd just steps in and soaks up those targets. Now, I know the Bengals offense has been really bad, but over the last 3 weeks alone, Boyd has seen 8, 9, and 7 targets respectively. Now, he's just turned that into 15 catches for 117 scoreless yards. Obviously, that's not great. So with the absence of Higgins, I think Boyd will see an uptick in targets over the next 2 weeks. They get the Cardinals and the Seahawks, both favorable matchups before the Bengals go on bye in week 7. Another receiver I like is Romeo Doubs of the Green Bay Packers. Now, he's rostered in just 54% of leagues. Seems a little low for a guy that's just dominated targets for the Packers. Over the last 2 weeks alone, he's seen 25 targets. He turned that into 14 catches for 168 yards and a score. What's even more encouraging is that Doubs saw all those targets even with the return of Christian Watson last week. Now, Watson may come along a little bit more slowly because he's coming back from a hamstring injury, but Doubs appears to be Jordan Love's favorite target at the wide receiver position, and that's encouraging. And the Packers have a nice schedule coming up too. They get the Raiders, then they have a bye week, and then they're at the Broncos, who up to this point have been the worst defense in football. I want to talk about another Packer here, and that's rookie wide receiver Jaden Reed. He's rostered in just 24% of Yahoo leagues, so you can definitely go grab this guy off waivers. And if Doubs has been Love's favorite target, then Reed's been his second favorite target. Through the first 4 weeks of Reed's career, he's got 25 targets, 12 catches, 203 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 2-point conversion. That's not bad, and they kind of look for him in the red zone too. I like both Doubs and Reed for those upcoming matchups against the Raiders and the Broncos. Reed's probably going to be easier to roster and grab off the waiver wire though. All right, moving on to tight end, everyone's favorite position. I mean, this has been pretty bad so far for everybody. Jonnu Smith and Cole Kmet are currently top 10 tight ends at this point in the season, just like we all thought, right? So for this, I'm just going to highlight one player, another Packer, surprise, surprise, and it's going to be Luke Musgrave. Now, he got a concussion in week 4, which is kind of a bummer. I think he was set for a big game against the Lions. They're the worst against tight ends in the league, and he had 1 catch for 1 yard before getting a concussion. As of the recording of this video, he was seen at practice, but the official report hasn't come out yet, so we don't know if he's going to play in week 5 or not. It's averaging 10.4 yards per reception, and before week 4, he had 96 air yards, which was 4th amongst all tight ends. I think he's going to have a breakout game one of these days, and it could easily come against the Raiders or the Broncos. So he's definitely a guy you should be patient with. He is a rookie tight end after all. And the reason why I'm not talking about more tight ends here is because there's not really that many stud tight ends that have a bye in weeks 5, 6, or 7. So to recap some of my favorite bye week fill-ins over the next few weeks. Week 5 at the quarterback position, I like Jared Goff. Week 7, I like either Geno Smith or Baker Mayfield. At the running back position, I like Jalen Warren of the Pittsburgh Steelers for week 5. I like Khalil Herbert or his teammate Roshan Johnson in week 6 and 7. Ronnie Rivers, Kyron Williams backup in week 6 and 7 of the LA Rams. Latavius Murray, I think you could start him in weeks 5, 6, or 7. Like I said, he's more of a touchdown or bust kind of guy. At the receiver position, I like Tyler Boyd of the Cincinnati Bengals in weeks 5 or 6. I like Romeo Doubs and his teammate Jaden Reed in weeks 5 and 7. And I like Luke Musgrave for my tight end, also of the Green Bay Packers in weeks 5 and 7. As always, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to follow me on Twitter or X at EasyMath, and definitely like and subscribe to RotoBaller's YouTube channel for more great fantasy football analysis.